HR issues can kill you. One complaint against your company can turn your world upside down. And you spend way too much time dealing with HR when you should be spending your time on making a profit. You should talk to Bambi. With Bambi, get access to your own dedicated US-based HR manager starting at just $99 per month. They get to know you and your business while providing HR expertise and the personal touch you need and want. They're available by phone, email, and real-time chat, so onboarding and terminations run smoothly. Team members reach peak performance, and your business stays compliant with changing HR regulations. And with Bambi's HR Autopilot, you'll automate important HR practices like setting policies, training, and feedback. HR managers can easily cost $80,000 a year, but Bambi starts at $99 per month. Schedule your free conversation today to see how much Bambi can take off your plate. Go to Bambi.com right now and type in Accelerate under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. Spelled BAM, BEE.com. Bambi.com. Type in Accelerate.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth with your host, Diane Helbig. Diane is a leading small business development and leadership coach, author, and speaker who is passionate about sharing valuable ideas, tips, and techniques with business professionals worldwide. Diane brings you the world's experts and gurus in all things business. Whether it's sales, structure, social media, planning, or plateauing, guests bring their expertise and energy to each episode. When growing your business is your focus, Accelerate Your Business Growth is the show to listen to. Got a topic or guest suggestion? Let Diane know. The goal is to make sure you have the information you need to move your business forward. Thanks for joining us. Settle in and enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. Head on over to audibletrial.com/businessgrowth to get your very own free trial of audible.com. And while you're there, check out the audiobooks, of course, but also take some time to look around and see all of the other audio content that is there for your listening pleasure. The Accelerate Your Business Growth podcast continues to enjoy inclusion on lists of the best podcasts to listen to. This is really because of the guests. These are folks who have expertise in particular areas of business. And they join me for a conversation where they share that expertise with all of you. Today is no different. My guest today is Michael Sherlock. Don't be fooled by the name, the hair color, or crazy shoes. Michael Sherlock is serious about business. She is dedicated to creating positive, productive, and profitable workplaces. Before launching her global training company, Shock Your Potential, Michael has been responsible for net revenue exceeding $75 million and as many as 500 employees at a time. She was recently chosen as number 12 in the top female entrepreneurs to watch in 2021 by enterpriseleague.com. Thanks so much for joining me today, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you here. Congratulations on number 12. So
Thank you. It was so funny to get the actual number and go, hey, number 12. I like it. 9 would have been better. 3 would have been better, but whatever.
I know, whatever. Listen. You're in the top 12. That's what matters.
Right? Exactly.
So this concept of, shock your potential, I'm so interested in it. And so I want to start by asking you to explain why people need to have their potential shocked.
Yes, and I love when I put in my LinkedIn profile, like I'm a shocker of potential, just because I thought it was fun to say. But Diane, I get this question all the time, and it's really fun for me because we all know we have potential in us, and we talk about it. We talk about unleashing our potential or reaching our potential. But at the heart of almost every one of us, and frankly, if we're all honest, at some point in time, no matter how confident we may be, there are days, weeks, months, moments, seconds where we hold ourselves back and we don't reach into the fullness of our potential. And, I've seen it from people who say, oh, I want to be the CEO of a company, but they fail to, go after a promotion. I see people who are maybe the top of their game as salespeople, but sometimes in just certain circumstances, they don't go in for the close when it's available to them. And with people with business that say, oh, I can't wait to be, just as big as, and put whatever name in there is important to you, but they don't take the steps to get there. And I know we can all suffer from it from time to time, but my job, the way I see it, is really to get people to lean into that and to give them sometimes the little kick in the pants they need, but to really make them understand that when you really lean into your potential, it brings a new life to you. It shocks you with energy. It shocks you with possibility. And I'm kind of shocking in my own realm. You never know what color my hair is going to be. You put me up on a stage in front of 1,000 people, I might break into song and dance. Um, I'm a little unique. I mean, my name is Michael. I'm a woman. But part of that is just really getting people to stop looking down or in the areas that they've always just looked in and look around or look up or look backwards or, just to have a different vantage point of where they need to go in order to start to really live within their potential, not just see it as something that they have, but they haven't given it motion.
It's so interesting. First of all, I have to say, I love your hair.
Thank you.
So I do. I got to see it a couple minutes ago. It's beautiful. It's so interesting to me because I know people who have said, I just thought my business would be further along. And I want to say to them, really? Based on what? I mean, it's not like you wake up one morning and that happens.
Right.
Ugh, okay.
Right.
So what's really holding people back from achieving their full potential?
Well, my take on it always is that there's something within all of us that's some sort of a fear. There's some fear of forward momentum. And, I'll give you an example just from my own life, because I think it's really important. I have this story, and when I tell you this story, it's going to make you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe you let that happen to you. But it was a really pivotal point in my life and in my career. And I remember that I was in a nonprofit. I was basically like the level of vice president. So I was second in command of this, kind of a small nonprofit. Um, and I knew that I was outgrowing my space there. And I knew that the executive director or president, whatever his title was at the time, I knew he was never going to leave. It was his career for life. And so I knew at some point I needed to go somewhere else. And I knew that I had the capability of being an executive director. I had a great, reputation in the community. I knew lots of people. And there was an opening for the executive director position for the YWCA in my town at that time. And I remember I went home to my now ex-husband, then husband, which will tell you a lot about the whole story. But I said to him, I'm going to apply to become the executive director of the YWCA. And he looked at me and he said, why would you do that? They're never going to hire you. You're only going to be disappointed.
Whoa.
I know. Every time I tell that story, I don't try and tell it too often because I don't want this story to get back to him because he'll be really mad that I share it.
Maybe it should. Okay, keep going.
But I realized right then and there, and Diane, I didn't apply. I did not apply. I know to this day, I'm like, what is wrong with you, Sherlock? I mean, anybody who knows me would think, oh my God, that was not you at all. But it was true. It wasn't me. It wasn't me because I I let those words give meaning to my fear. I was already fearful, but I was
Yeah.
somebody who moved ahead in my fear. And
Mhm.
that made me fearful. And I stepped back. And I'll tell you, when I recognized it was the day I saw the announcement of who got hired as the executive director. I knew that person, I knew her reputation, and I knew I could have done a way better job. And I went,
Wow.
you know what? It's not their fault. It's not her fault. It's your fault. It's not even your husband's fault.
Yeah.
It's your fault. And I had to take that and say, okay, what are you going to do with this next time you face it? Because you're going to face it again. And I can't tell you that that was the last time I faced anything like that, because that wouldn't be true. This time last year, my business was going great. I had speaking engagements all over the world,
Mhm.
but I built my company to be wholly dependent on whether or not I got on an airplane, went to train
Oh,
or speak somewhere.
right.
And I had known that I needed to have affiliate relationships, and I had known I needed to have some multiple income streams. I had known all that, but I was being fed easily and it felt good. And so when all of a sudden, one day to the next, almost a year to the day, as we're taping this,
Yeah.
everything melted away. I had that moment again of, oh my God, what did I do? And what do I do
Yeah.
from here? And I love to tell people, basically, I like crawled into the fetal position, huddled in the corner and sucked my thumb for about a day. And it's all gone. What's happening? And then I said, okay, Sherlock. And I always call myself Sherlock when it's
Yeah.
time to tell myself something
It's
serious.
so good.
And I'm like, Sherlock, you have people who are relying on you. You have this business that you made these choices. Now, what are you going to do about it? And I'll tell you what, that changed everything. I'd always wanted to develop an app. We developed an app,
Wow.
so I could take training right to people. I wanted affiliate relationships. We have over 25 of them right now that are incredibly strong in driving
Wow.
revenue. I actually started a second business in the middle of all this chaos. And now speaking gigs are coming back. So all these
Yeah.
things are coming together. And all I can think about is, when's the next time when I find myself curled in the ball in the fetal position, sucking my thumb? How long am I going to stay there? And what am I going to do after that? Because those are the moments now that I know I have them. We'll all have them. But at least I know now I don't stay in the fetal position. And it's okay to feel sorry for yourself for a day, but 2 days, now you're just being, saucy.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
A little
So
overindulgent, right?
exactly,
But yeah.
exactly. And I think, I share those because I think at the end of the day, there's always a fear in of us. Oh my gosh, what if I
Mhm.
fail? Oh my gosh, what if I fall on my face? What if it works? You know, what if it's greater than I thought and I don't know how to handle it?
Right.
Whatever it is, there's some voice that tells us all, oh, wait, it's a lot better if we just hold back just a little bit longer. And that's where the shock is once you get that shock, you are not ever desirous of staying in that fetal position anymore.
Interesting. Wow. So I agree with you. And I was in a similar situation a year ago. Most of my business that was already slated for 2021 was in-person trainings,
Mm-hmm.
and they all vanished.
Yep.
Right. And all you go one day, you have a business, the next day, you don't.
Yeah.
So after building it for 14 years, and I thought, okay, wait a second,
Mm-hmm.
what am I going to do with this? Right. And, and
Yeah.
you just, and so I did exactly what you did, said, okay, here's things I've been wanting to do all these years, and I've never gotten around to doing them. So why not now?
Exactly. Why
Yeah.
not now? Why not
Yeah.
me and why not now?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how does, how do I want to ask this question? Talk to me some about personal branding, because I feel like that is a big part of this process.
Yeah, it really is. And it took me, especially when, we decided to rebrand so much, to build out the Shock Your Potential app, for instance, to launch and rebrand our podcast, to think about kind of the elements of how I was a year ago and more speaking to Fortune 500 companies and training their leaders and their sales professionals, to now going direct, so kind of a B2B to get to in front of those people, now going B2C directly to consumers. of my information, I really had to take my brand and decide to do some new things with it. So I've been very fortunate. One of the smartest things that I did when I launched this company 6 years ago was I knew I needed to create a following, and I wanted to create my primary following on LinkedIn. At that point in time, it wasn't really it wasn't what it is today.
Yeah.
And so I went after my target audience, which is really interesting because I was still primarily going B2B, working with businesses and associations to hire me for speaking and training. But I made my platform on LinkedIn where I made sure to very proactively, very strategically start to align with sales leaders across the world. And so now I have about 18,000 followers on LinkedIn, and it's been very purposeful. So people know me as Michael, the author Michael, the trainer Michael, the motivator in that realm. And I'd also had this, Michael, the trainer, Michael, the speaker in this other realm. But when I merged them together and I said, okay, I need to spend more time directly speaking to the people who will buy my book, that will download my app, then my message got that much clearer. Like, I'm here to really make you better at whatever it is you're doing that relates to your professional goals. So if you want to be a better leader, you want to be a better salesperson, a better sales leader, you want to be a better small business owner, that's where I sit for you. And that branding then it expands and kind of encompasses the other part of me that says, and by the way, I do this in a way that's fun, you know, because I have the colorful hair, because I like to put up, wacky pictures on my blogs, because I have kind of a wry sense of humor. People see that I'm very serious about what I'm talking about, but I do it in a way that feels digestible to them. They enjoy it. It's not intimidating. So they lean into it. And that branding is really important because no matter what you're doing, especially if you're an entrepreneur, there's probably a lot of people doing what you're doing. And how you stand out is really critically important. And taking the time from everywhere, from what you look to how you operate in the mediums that are most important to your business. So for me, it's LinkedIn, other people Facebook, other people, Twitter, Instagram, or just their online, business. That how you show up matters, and how you show up will be a differentiating factor between you and separating you from everybody else who does things similar to you.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that I think people really struggle with is the competition is so fierce. There are so many companies, there's so many people doing the same sorts of things. And people get stuck in this when you say, so what makes you different? What's your differentiator? And then the answer seems to be, I have great customer service, which, doesn't mean anything. It's like, well, good for you, but what? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And people really struggle with really knowing what it is about what their secret sauce is.
Yeah. Well, and I have a funny quick story about that. So I spent a lot of time in my corporate world in the hearing aid sector. And so the last two positions, I was a vice president of sales running, either all or a quarter of our US sales retail stores. And I was doing a sales meeting in one of our states. I won't tell who it is, but if they're listening, they'll know exactly when it was when this happened. And I said, so tell me about why you think we're better than Miracle Ear down the street or Beltone or wherever. And my team got all riled up. We're like, we're better than Costco. We're better than this. We're better than them. And I said, okay, why? Well, and to your point, because we are better, we care more about our patients, and we give better customer service, and we are blah, 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 blah. And I just let them go. And I just kept saying, tell me more. What are you different? Till they all wore out. I had like 30 people in the room. And I said, hey, I just have a quick question for you guys. How many of you who work for us now at some point in time worked for either Beltone, Miracle Ear, Costco, the other competitor down the street? And like 75% of them did. I said, do you really think that you're better here than you were there? They're like, no, I was the same there. I'm like, okay, then you guys are just wrong.
Good point.
and they, the look of shock on their face, they're like, because they held themselves behind that belief, we are better. And I'm like, you're just telling yourself this.
Yeah.
And It ain't true. Sorry.
Because it's so easy, right? I don't have to think about it. We just must be better because people like us.
Yeah, because it's
Ugh.
me.
Yeah, I make all the difference in the world. Right. Okay.
Well, and what's funny is that we really do as individuals. But at the same time, unless we've asked our customers, why did you choose
Mm,
me? Why did you choose me? If I come to you to be a business coach client, and you say, well, why did you pick me? I better be able to
mhm.
say, this is why I picked you. I picked you because of A, B, C, and D, and this is exactly what you've delivered to me that proves that I made the right decision. Those questions we're often afraid to ask because we
Yeah.
don't want to know the answer.
Yeah.
But if you don't know the answer, then you do know the answer.
Ooh, I like that. Wow.
I know. See, I get tough.
Uh-huh. That's what I like. That is so interesting.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's a tough one. And that, frankly, I
Yeah.
like to tell the story about, why I created the Shock Your Potential app. I had actually wanted to do this for years because I wanted a way when I sat up in front of that audience of 1,000 people, they're like, we love you. You're amazing. And I'm like, oh, look at these people. They love me. I'm amazing. They're all going to follow me and buy all my books. And then, 5 of them would follow you and 10 of them would buy your books. So you feel
Yeah.
good for a day. But the next speaker who's up on stage an hour later, they're like, you're amazing. We love you. And I thought, you know what? There's only so much mindset that anybody has at a moment in time. So if I
Yeah.
at least said on the stage, hey, by the way, the slides today will be on my Shock Your Potential app. It's free to download. The slides will be right there. Love to have you follow me. That's a
Huh.
great way to leave a room. And if they do it right then you actually have followers. Because if they actually care enough to do that, then they actually do love you, even if it's in that moment. And you have an opportunity to capture them. But if not, I had to say, you know what? They love me for that moment, which is great. But did they love me enough and remember me enough to go back to their boss and say, we need to bring this woman in? And sometimes
Right.
they did,
Yeah.
but just as many times that they didn't, or more when you think about the numbers of people. And it's hard to take on our egos, but that's really important information for us to reflect on.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, because we have to know what they want, what matters to them,
Mhm.
what their synergy is, because we're not right for everybody.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
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 My purple and green hair is not right for everybody.
Yeah. Good point. All right. I'm going to take a quick sponsor break and then we will continue the conversation. Accelerate Your Business Growth is happy to be sponsored by audible.com. And while you may know, I'm imagining that audible.com has thousands of audiobook titles to choose from, you might not know about all the other content like podcasts and guided meditations, and Audible originals, and so much more. And for me, the cool thing is that I can get all of those in one place on one platform. So I don't have to keep moving around, entering and exiting different platforms to get the content that I'm looking for. I have a feeling that you will enjoy it as well. So we're offering a free trial. Go to audibletrial.com/businessgrowth, sign up for that free trial, and then go exploring. Check it out, see what resonates with you, and enter this amazing world. They're always adding new things to it. So it's just a great resource for you and your life and your business. Today, we're speaking with Michael Sherlock about shocking your potential. Okay, so Michael, what is one critical element that you would say everyone must do in order to shock their own potential?
Can I give you a 5 and give them really quickly?
Sure.
Well, I'll first give you just one, and one is the ability to self-reflect. That's really important to me. It's the core of everything that I do. I'm always reflecting on where I am, what I'm doing, is it working, is it not, and adjusting from there. And our ability to self-reflect and make be aware of who we are is really important. But I thought I'd highlight just really when I talk about shock your potential, this is actually going to be, this is probably my number one requested course right now. And it'll be the title of my third business book called Shock Your Potential. But I take the letters in the word shock and I break them down. So I use the S for stand out. So we've already talked a little bit about that. Like, how do you stand out? And how do you want to stand out? And I always define this about the things that people say about you when you're not in the room.
Mm.
What words are they using? And if you don't know what words they're using, then it's important for you to figure out some people who will safely help you to understand those words. Because if they don't align with what you want to be said about you, then you're off kilter with that. The H
Yeah.
is for hone your skills and hire your deficiencies. So, what I mean by that is
Hmm.
there's skills that all of us need to have for our businesses or our professional lives that we may not be solid in. Mine's financials. I hate doing the financials. I hate it. I can do it. I hate it. Finally, my husband's doing it for me. So, there goes the hire your deficiencies. But I learned early on that in order, especially for me to grow and scale my business, I had to add team members. And I did actually last year, even when losing all of my business, I went from two team members to 8. And
Wow.
that was a huge jump, but it was important for me to do all the things that we've accomplished. And it's because I didn't have the time or the bandwidth to do what I needed to do to scale fast enough. And it paid off, but it's a gamble. But hiring your deficiencies closes some of those things that you don't need to do yourself, but need to be done for your growth. The O is for operate as if you're already there. And I don't mean fake it till you make it. I
Mm.
mean, look at people who've already achieved what you want to achieve at some level and figure out what their special sauce is. Not to imitate them or mimic them, but to learn, are there habits, are there processes, are there systems, are there, little secret, pieces of information that, they really make use of in order to get them to stay where they are or to got them where they are now. So operating as if you're already there means you do have to start thinking about where you want to be, because only then and start trying to do the things that you do then, because only then can you see farther than that.
Mm.
The C is cultivate people and opportunities that are going to get you there. And that's when you start to align yourself with the right people that will provide opportunities, and not to leech or mooch off of people, but to find really, truly strategic partnerships. And for the last 3 years, Diane, I had so many people saying, "Oh, I'd love to collaborate on things." And I go, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah," when I'd have enough time, and I had
Mm.
this list of great collaborators and did nothing with them. And so when finally everything hit the fan on our world, I started reaching out to them and saying, "Hey, you know what? I apologize that I didn't get back to you. I'd really like to collaborate." And they're like, "Oh, thank God we didn't know what to do either right now." And some of the creativity that has come out of this has been absolutely phenomenal and will be
Wow.
long-term solid business income for me. But the K, this is the tricky one for most people. And I think it goes back to kind of what we were talking about in the beginning, because the K stands for know your worth and know your value.
Mm.
And this is where a lot of us fall short, is
Yeah.
especially in those moments of doubt, is truly believing, knowing your worth and knowing your value and leaning into that to help keep you strong in those moments of weakness. Because I do know that what I do makes a difference in people's careers. Without a doubt, I've seen it. I don't know how many times. I can't tell you how many times after giving somebody advice in a room with 1,000 people on how to get their promotion, that they call me a week later, 2 weeks later, 2 months later and say, "By the way, I put all that into practice. I got the raise. I got the extra PTO. I got exactly
Mm.
what I was looking for." And I said, "You know what? I gave you the words to use and some of the mindset, but you knew your worth and you knew your value. So when you went in with more conviction for yourself than you ever had before." That's how you get it. And that's how we make it through the tough times, as well as lean into the great times and gain even more out of them.
Wow. Those are awesome.
Yes, for one, I gave you 6. Sorry.
I know. It's hey, thank you. But and that last one, I get it. I agree that that one is tough.
Mhm.
It's I thought you were going to say the K was know yourself.
Ooh.
Hmm.
Well, and
But
I
I
think that
totally
kind of
got
comes
it.
in with the
Yeah.
self-reflection.
Yeah. Right. Right. Because you
Mhm.
have to be able to. I thought that was really key as well, that we have to be able to be introspective and
Yeah, absolutely.
self-reflect. Yeah, which is hard for people.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly
Mhm.
is.
Yeah. And is it sounds like we also have to be willing to venture and get out of our comfort zone sometimes so we can realize that it didn't kill us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the shock. Sometimes I refer to it as if you've ever been, walking in along a road or pasture and there's an electrified fence. And I don't mean the ones that are going to kill you or from like Jurassic Park when the poor kid climbs up it, when he gets zapped. But I mean those ones that give just a really small jolt of electricity, enough to make you feel it in your fingers, not to hurt you or burn you, but it, makes you twitch back.
Mhm.
And that shock makes you very hyper aware of what you are doing. And so you're not
Mm.
likely to actually put your hand on that thing again. Now, if you're a young, juvenile boy, you might stick your tongue on it because, they like to just do things like that.
A double dog dare you. That's what that
Exactly.
is.
But most sensible adults would not, but they would be very aware. Oh, where did this fence come from? How far does it go? I need to get over the fence. How am I going to get over the fence? Is there, a gate in the fence? And that's when we start having different awareness of what our options are in order to be successful. And so sometimes it causes a little bit of pain and discomfort, but that pain and discomfort should make you more aware of where you were sitting in comfort and relativity to in relation to just being kind of non-moving. Because
Oh,
if I'm too comfortable, I'm not stretching, I'm not taking those chances. And that's when we start to have that awareness of, oh, I'm going to have to do something here in order to get a different result.
right. Huh. All right. So, talk to me some about like LinkedIn and Clubhouse and things like that, and how they can actually help someone in this process of shocking their potential.
Yeah, LinkedIn is still my primary venue.
Mhm.
And although I do things differently than I have over the last couple of years, mostly because I've gotten so busy. So I try to have 3 major posts a week. And very soon I'll start doing monthly articles as well. I've done a few articles, but I haven't done that to the extent that I need to yet. But the thing is about standing out on LinkedIn is that you need to have something that makes you stand out. So the way I got myself to really stand out is I did my blog there every day. And for the first couple of years, I did it 5 days a week. And
Wow.
I called mine Thoughts from the Coffee Table. And the reason I call that is that I would walk my husband to work and I'd come back and I'd have my cup of coffee and I would sit there and decide what I was going to write that day. And so I found my pattern. And the reason I write it first on LinkedIn is because there's a max for a post of 1,300 characters. So and writing out thoughts from the coffee table that takes a lot of characters. So I
Yes.
knew I had to tell great stories in a short amount of time. I use really quirky pictures that I've taken with my own phone. And then I have kind of a quirky statement that the way the post is written, you see thoughts from the coffee table and you see my funny little first, line, and you see the picture, and then it makes you want to read the rest of it. So that is how I stood out. That was how I became a thought leader in terms of customer experiences specifically. And so over time that's grown and changed. I do a couple different things with some kind of motivational videos, so I intertwine them. But what I see people doing wrong on LinkedIn is, number one, I see a lot of people that don't post at all, or they just or they make kind of odd comments. I see
Yeah.
people post things that should be more appropriate for Facebook and not LinkedIn.
Mhm.
But I also see a lot of people that are really trying to understand that LinkedIn is is a great opportunity for you to gain a following if you have a message that people really want. And so I'll tell you what, when I did not post a thoughts from the coffee table this week, and I've already had 3 people ask me why it hasn't been out.
Wow.
And so I know that that's something that people love to read. And I had to tell them because I actually have, a huge interview after we're done taping ours today. And so I've been doing a lot of preparation for that. So I said,
Wow.
hey, look, sometimes it doesn't happen, but they're like, but we love it. That's when you know you have traction.
Huh?
Clubhouse is something uniquely different.
Yeah.
And I actually have been using it slightly, but starting in April, I'm using it. I will begin using it on a regular basis.
Okay.
And I think it's very interesting to create new kinds of followers in an audio only environment, but where you have to have your name and you have to, you cannot just screw around with this. You can't be in there and be a jerk because you'll get kicked off, which is great. Doesn't mean it
Yeah.
all has to be like positive Pollyanna stuff, but people are having really serious, mindful discussions about business and life and everything. But it's a really unique platform. I wish I would have jumped on it about 2 months earlier,
Hmm.
because I think that there's something to be said for being one of the early people on. I only have like 25 followers or something right now, but I have a pretty intense strategy that we believe is going to play out really well beginning in April. But it comes down to, no matter what you're doing, it comes down to consistency. And
Hmm.
that's why when I don't put a thoughts from the coffee table out on Tuesdays, by Wednesdays, I've got people going, "Are you okay?
Yeah.
What's going on? You in the hospital?" So,
God forbid. Well, because they come to expect it and
exactly,
want it and look for it.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I have not gone on Clubhouse yet because I don't have an iPhone. I'm a
Mhm,
PC kind of gal.
mhm.
So, not allowed on. And I'm sort of glad about that because I think everyone else can figure it out. And then if it's still around, you know,
Yeah. And there's
maybe
a
I will.
few others that are coming on. One's called Fishbowl. They keep trying to get me to get on and do something. I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't have time for this. I can't. You can't be in every place.
Right.
It just doesn't work. But I think there is some validity to it. You just have to find the right niche for it, and that requires real regular participation. And that's where, knowing this month with what I had coming up, I just could not dedicate myself to it.
Yeah.
But after this, it is definitely on our agenda, just to test for
Hmm.
about 3 months, and then at the end of 3 months, we'll know whether or not it has actually made a difference in followers. And if so, great. And if not, then I'll just kind of play around there when I want to.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting to see how
Yeah.
it, where it is. Yeah. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. I mean, consistency is the key to all of this way that
Yeah.
we are doing things because you have to build up that awareness and credibility and whatnot.
Absolutely.
I'm curious about two things. One is I'm really curious what advice you'd give someone who's experiencing uncertainty or insecurity in their position with the way today's job market is.
Hmm. Yeah. So somebody's still working in kind of corporate.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting. My take on this, actually, I was just talking to a reporter friend of mine, and I was telling her that I think that once the vaccines are out, and that most people have them, I think we're going to see actually quite a bit of turnover. I think there's been a lot of people who have just been putting their head down, trying to
Mhm.
stay out of the line of fire, and thankful when they still have their job at the end of this craziness. But I think that we're going to see some job hopping going around. I don't think it'll be I don't think people are going to quit, but I think you'll see a lot more people starting to try and find something different. And the reason I say that is because we're going to find out which companies are staying all remote, which ones are going hybrid, which ones are trying to figure it out. And we're going to know whether or not people are comfortable staying in working environments where there's a lot of remote work, when maybe their leaders don't know how to manage them
Mhm.
well remotely. And I think that's going to be a serious kind of a fallout of this, because there's a lot of managers who are still just trying to operate the way they always
Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
but it's not the same in an
Yeah.
all remote or a hybrid work environment. I think there will be opportunity, because I think business is going to bounce back in a lot of ways, and I think that there will be opportunities for people to find other jobs and other opportunity, other potential promotions and that type of thing. But I also think we're going to see people less likely to try and negotiate for better salaries or better benefits because they're afraid of losing.
Hmm.
And I think there's always opportunity in those areas. It's just, you've got to you just can't negotiate and be a jerk. That's why I always tell people, don't be a jerk when you negotiate.
Is that what you
If you're a
always tell
jerk,
people?
yeah, I really do. Like, you can always negotiate. And usually there's something unless somebody says, this is the only offer we have, it's the only
Yeah.
thing we can do. In most cases, there's always something, at least one thing that you can negotiate. But if you're a jerk, it's just not going to
Yeah.
work anyway. But I hate to see people shy away from continuing to negotiate because they're assuming or afraid that they can't in these environments. And I think that will hurt us all. Um, if we have that hesitancy, because it's going to start to cap things, because the
Mhm.
cheaper you can get your employers,
Right.
your employees, the better it is overall for a company. So I think it'll be really interesting. But I do think there's a great light at the end of the tunnel, and I think many businesses, especially those who are really being more serious about hybrid work environments and remote work environments, I think we're going to see some incredible benefits to how you work from home. I mean, heck, just say if you move to a job that's 100% remote, one of the great things that I would try and negotiate for is making sure I have two monitors, making sure I have a better chair, office chair. Be honest about right now, the space I have is I'm stacking 14 old phone books, on top of each other to be able to, look, and I really need something that's, a desk that's more appropriate for me. And I think employers are going to start to take some real serious note of that, because then that makes people more productive and happier employees all around.
And the cost of, I think a lot of companies are going to find that their costs have gone down dramatically because they're not having to pay for parking if they were in a downtown, an urban setting, and they're not going to have necessarily the same amount of office space that they had in the past. So they're going to be able to, everyone's going to be able to benefit
Yeah, well,
because
that'll be an interesting thing too, because how many businesses are stuck into multi-year leases that they can't get out of? So,
yeah,
I mean, there's going to be some real difficult discussions and decisions, going on. But yes, overall,
yes,
should they have some more flexibility? I'd say so. We might not see the full benefit of that for a couple of years, and heck, by then we might be seeing people, driving back and saying we can't exist without bringing people back more frequently. So, but I think the next
yeah,
2 years, my gut is we're going to see a tremendous amount of remote work and hybrid work going on.
interesting. I think you're probably right. I do think I think once we get past a couple of years, I think people are going to want to, some people work
Mhm.
better when they are in a community, and
Oh,
other people
absolutely.
work better when they're alone. So if there's that flexibility, a company could really benefit from, being that flexible with how people work, leaning more into who the individual is and what works best for them.
Yep, absolutely,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
So is this the same sort of thing that you would say for people who are like just graduated from college or who are getting ready to in like a month or two and about
Yeah,
to enter the job market?
that's going to be the toughest one, I have to say. Um, Pardon me, I had a little cough there.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think the recent grads are going to have the toughest component because
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of experience, and they're going to enter a reduced opportunity market right now, because many companies have cut employees or they've put hiring freezes on. So those jobs are going to be more likely to go to people that do have experience at certain levels. Now that also puts people kind of in this sandwich issue, the kind of the middle of the sandwich, the meat of the sandwich. Those who don't have a ton of tenure and experience, aka are currently paid more, versus those who have virtually no experience that might be a little more affordable for a business. I think, my gut tells me that kind of that sandwich, the middle of the sandwich, are
Mhm.
going to do okay. The bread on both ends are going to struggle with this,
Yeah.
because we're going to see more people. Many companies, we've already seen it, have offered early retirement packages.
Mhm.
Different kinds of exit strategies for people. So they're still trying to figure out, how do we balance this mix? So my advice to those coming out of college is, don't be discouraged, but you may not be able to land the perfect job. So, start setting yourself up mentally to say, hey, right now a job is a job. And if I get a job and I'm looking towards then what I really want to do the next step, that experience, every month, year of experience gets me that much closer to the middle of the sandwich, then that's better. Also, coming in the realm of volunteering, or looking at some
Hmm.
opportunities of internships. And I don't mean for a long period of time, because
Mhm.
you still need to actually have a paycheck and,
Yeah.
start paying off some of that student loan debt. But if there's not an easy entry point into a company that you really want to work with, that asking them, are there volunteer opportunities or internship opportunities that I might be able to take advantage of so that I can prove to you the value I can bring to this company? And you got to be clear about,
Mm.
this is to show you and prove to you the value I can bring to this company. Then people will take note. Well, gosh, she's willing to work for the next 6 months as an intern. Well, that's a good way for us to test whether or not this person might make a good fit for us overall as a company. And so those things I think we're going to have to take a look at, because, being out of work for a long time is really, challenging and struggling. And not only that, but emotionally, the longer you're out of a job and trying to find one, the harder it is on your psyche.
Right.
And so I think we need to prep these new grads for the reality, but don't discourage them. Just make sure that we're talking a lot and helping them to, have some emotional buffers against how bad it might feel to not get something immediately out.
Well, and I love this idea of getting creative with what could that look like, right? What could you do? And I think that makes people feel like they have more control
Mm-hmm.
over the situation, that can feel very unsettling and insecure because you don't think you have any control. But I like those ideas, because those are ways of sort of taking ownership and taking charge of your next step.
Well, and I'll tell you, depending on what kind of things you might do, let's say you just are graduating right now with a poli sci major, and you're like, what am I going to do with a poli sci major? Well, I know we're not in the middle of a big presidential election, but we've got other elections going on all the time for councilmen and mayors and,
Mhm.
different kinds of positions that might not be all that glamorous. But, volunteering for 3 months in an election campaign for anyone not only gives you resume experience, but it doesn't, you don't even have to just be a poli sci major, but I'm just using that as an
Mhm.
example.
Yeah.
But it also can give you leadership experience. So if you
Yeah.
say, yeah, I was put in charge of the door to door flyer handing outing, that's actually leadership experience. And you can use that to sell yourself up when the next opportunity comes around.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. You
Hmm.
got to be able to look at it in that way. Wow. Michael, this is so great. I really appreciate this conversation, and the information that you've shared, I think, is tremendously valuable for the listeners. And so, will you tell them how they can find you and what you've got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Easiest way is to go to shockyourpotential.com. That's our website that has everything that we need. But I would really encourage you to download our Shock Your Potential app. So you just open your app store for Apple or Google and just type in Shock Your Potential. You can't miss us. Our bright, logo is right there for you. But that is a great resource. About 80% of the content we have on that is free. And about 20% of it right now is what we call the executive membership. That's $5.99 a month. And the things that we have aligned to it, I feel are really valuable. And that's where we're building such a nice, tighter connection right to our followers, which is fantastic. A lot of exciting things happening with the app over the next couple months. So it's a great time to just see what we have going on there and learn about more of what we do.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And listeners, thank you. Get out there and shock your potential. Go download that app so that you can be in the know and in the mix. And I also would like to thank audible.com. Head on over to audibletrial.com/business growth, sign up for that free trial, and go on an expedition. As always, continue to prosper and be curious. And until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
Do you love news about LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, and just about every other recruitment tech company out there?
Hell yeah. I'm Chad.
I'm Cheese.
We're the Chad and Cheese Podcast.
All the latest recruiting news and insights are on our show.
Dripping in snark and attitude.
Subscribe today wherever you listen to your podcasts. We out.